Good morning. It is the day after Thanksgiving, so I'm a little bit late, so happy Thanksgiving. I'm not feeling well. We'll get into that story. But I have not updated you guys in a while, and I thought it was time to update you. It's a long story, so pull up your britches, pull up a chair, get a coffee, turn on the fireplace, do what you gotta do. This is gonna be a bumpy ride, guys. Are you ready? I wasn't ready for this one. So let's start with the movement clinic. I was so prepared for this, so excited. I had my Caring Bridge people praying for me, my family, my TikTok. I feel like I had a whole world of prayer and good vibes and support. I felt good going into it because all of these other neurology places I was going to, they were outside clinics that had no connection to what I was doing. And this movement clinic, and like neurologists with a subspecialty in movement, was in the clinic that I was seeing other doctors in. So I was seeing a hematologist, I was seeing cardiologist, I had seen a physical therapist, and I go to the ER there. So all the other doctors I was seeing and getting like procedures and like all of these other things in, and had just done the tilt table test in. So they had just seen and diagnosed me with dysautonomia, and they saw that crazy stiff attack. So I was like, everything's done in this building, you know? Everything was done inside here. As you can see, you're hearing this conversation isn't going well already. Everything was done in this building. I was like, everything's connected. This is amazing. All the other doctors I had seen were outside the building, and they were trying to connect the dots, and it was weird. This doctor was on a university. They have more resources. So I get into the appointment. I get in, I have my medical articles in front of me. I have my book that is connecting MCAS with stiff person syndrome. I have everything I need put together. I have my speech I have written up. I have everything just laid out nicely. I'm ready, I'm prepared. And the fellow walks in. Originally, this appointment was supposed to be out in February, and I got it moved right up to like a week in November. Like, things were getting really bad, and they're like, how about next week? And I was like, you know, I was like, this is meant to be. I sit down, I'm like, well, I get to see the doctor. They're like, yep, they'll come in after we do the history, and I take some notes and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay. Well, we stalled a bit and we were a bit frustrated and confused. I'm like, well, okay, fine. Then I'm going to give you my speech. I didn't like how this was starting because this is how it went down in Mayo. We tried to explain things and jumped around, ended up getting worse, and then we had to see the doctor again. But then the doctor missed some pieces, and then we had to like try to re-catch up, and it was like, we need these doctors in the rooms. They gave us a 2-hour slot, and it's like, I understand that it's easier for them to not have to waste time, but you're wasting time when you're not there taking the vital information and the story. Yes, the lady took the history, but she also took the information of what's going on, the history of start this timeline. And what happened was you just did telephone to the doctor. I don't know how good you are at playing telephone. Are you good at playing telephone? We learned back in preschool that playing telephone gets you nowhere. And so far, every time I've played telephone with a doctor, with a fellow, it has gone horribly wrong. So I give her my history, I give her my articles, and I'm realizing that it doesn't matter what I tell her about these articles because I'm now talking to the doctor. So I can't pitch my speech anyway, or my spiel about the articles. Then she, because I'm in a room with fluorescent lighting, I have my big glasses on, I've got my mask on, I've got my headphones on. So she takes my glasses off. We tell her to turn the lights down, but because we're in a room with fluorescent lighting, as soon as she takes my glasses off, I start to stiff up. She leaves my glasses off, and she starts to do the reflex texting, and that's when it triggers a really big stiff attack. And I stiffen up really hard, full body, and my mom actually has to stand up and make sure that my head doesn't fall off the back of my wheelchair. When I'm in my full hard collar, my neck starts to lean off the back of my wheelchair, which if I had my nice wheelchair, there's a neck support, but because I'm in a basic wheelchair and I'm tall, it only goes to here. So I'm sitting like this, starting to go like this. So my mom has to come back and make sure I'm supported. And so I'm sitting here like this, stiff, and she's seeing it, and she's like going like this, and I'm like, go ahead, feel it, touch it, look at it. She doesn't know what she's looking at. Obviously, she's a fellow. And I'm explaining everything from when it started. I said, since I've had meningitis in 2010, things have not been right. I've been fatigued. Like, that's when I think everything was the beginning of the end. It just went, things just never got better. 2016, I think, was my first stiff attack. I got stuck in half. That's when I think this all really started. I literally got stuck in half and had to go to the hospital. Trying to explain all these things. She's like taking notes and looking at things, and then I'm trying to explain all these sidebar things of like, these are all my disorders. And she's like typing them into the computer because they're not all in there. It's like, I was recently diagnosed with dysautonomia, and she's writing out this in, and it's like, and then she informs me that the doctor and her Googled mast cell activation syndrome last night, and I'm just like, so helpful, so helpful. And if you Google that, well, that's like, don't Google that the night before. That's going to freak you out. That's going to freak any doctor out, you know? I could tell she read the notes from my complex care doctor, which was great, but if you don't understand these disorders, you're not going to understand these disorders, you know? So then I sat in the room and I waited for a good 20 minutes. Most of that I was stuck stiff. She said she went to go look for a hot pack because that's helpful, and she came back into the doctor's. Yeah, I couldn't find a hot pack. It's okay. Thank you, though. And Mom said when the doctor came in, she knew immediately what the doctor was going to say. I couldn't turn my head. Doctor comes in, gets real close. Well, you're not presenting typically. And I went, first off, I've never presented typically. Ever. Then I slide her a piece of paper and I say, here's an article I'm not presenting typically. Here's a misdiagnosis. Here's a misdiagnosis. If you're going to label me as this or this or this, here's these articles. And I start in with my medical articles that I have been researching for the past 6 months, that have all the connections to my disorders. And obviously I can't use names from my support groups, but I was like, there are hundreds and hundreds of people with my disorders that have this disorder. There's a huge connection. And then I took my book of EDS, and I was like, here's a book that is literally connecting this disorder to this disorder. And it says it right here. Then she takes my glasses off. I go into it. She starts tapping away. Then she says, tell me the days of the week while I'm in it. What she's trying to get my brain to like distract itself, to like trick me out of my attack. Because she's trying to see if it's psychological. Then while I'm in it, she's trying to like pull my arms away. And then she's trying to pull my legs away. Trying to manipulate my body while I'm in it. Then while my hand's like this, she's like, wiggle your fingers. And I'm like, and I said, I'm gonna stop you there. And then when she ordered the tests for stiff person, and she ordered one test when I know the whole panel, and then she mentioned, when she mentioned the one test, and I said, you're not going to order the panel, she says, oh, that's the one test. I realized I was talking to a person who had no idea what they were looking at. They were just yanking me around. And then she goes, I have a great doctor you should talk to. They have this great clinic out in Louisville. And I go, oh, I know this doctor. I've tried to call them. Also, that clinic in Louisville has been closed for 3 years. I go, actually, I think they're out in Stanford. I go, actually, she's in Northwestern in Chicago. So all of this information she's spewing at me, I'm sitting here literally correcting every other word she's saying. I'm like, if you're going to give information out about this, you probably should say it correctly. It's very frustrating when a doctor is sitting here trying to tell you something, and I'm like, don't try to tell me something, or don't try to tell patients something if you're going to give out false information or bad information. Tried to call that doctor. Can't get in there because of my insurance. Like, I can't talk to the doctor just because of my insurance. It's really frustrating. Also, my mom might walk in, so I might have a clip it here when I come back in and talk again. So yeah, I had to correct her on all that information. She's like, yeah, I think it'd be great to go down to Chicago. I was like, oh, okay, Chicago, okay. I think it would be great for you to do some physical therapy down there. I'm like, oh, we're going to Chicago now. Okay, for physical therapy. How are you going to move me? How are you going to get me there? How am I going to do physical therapy? Because my physical therapist is now leaving my in-home therapy because they no longer can work with me. They said they will work with me once we find a treatment plan to get me moving. Because every time you move me and do things, as you see, like literally you tapping on me with a reflex thingy triggers an attack, as you see. So sending me to a movement clinic and bashing me up against a wall all day long, you're just going to create medical trauma. So I don't even know how you're going to get me to Chicago or any movement clinic across the country, especially with COVID. She's like, well, yeah, I think you just need to, and I said, and before you throw stigma at somebody, you should probably understand what's sitting in front of you, or try. And I brought up the treatment plans, or like what treatment things they're looking at, and I said, I would never do that because of your mast cell activation syndrome. And I said, you Googled this last night. You don't understand my mast cell activation syndrome because every patient is completely different. So you don't understand my mast cell activation syndrome. My hematologist upstairs understands my mast cell activation syndrome better than you do. Like better than you ever would. Because my mast cell activation syndrome Lawrence Afrin used to work in this building with that hematologist who is like world renowned for mast cell activation syndrome. And so if I needed those treatments, I would talk to my hematologist who would set it up as an admin. And I would do an admission here, and we would do it slowly. And what you need for mast cell activation syndrome before these treatments is pre-meds. And like I know how this works. And she's just sitting there like trying to argue with me. I'm like, I'm not gonna. And I was like, run the labs. And then I said, I want an EMG. I want a fair EMG because the last time, I don't know if I talked about it much here. The last time I did the EMG, I was laying there, stuck up in the air, frozen. And the doctor, who I call Jekyll and Hyde, was sitting there telling me, please stop doing that. And pushing against my body, telling me, don't do that. And he was like, stop doing that. So I realized that I probably had a positive going on over there. But he wouldn't admit that the thing was a positive. And he was sitting there poking me in my spine and in my back and all over my body. And he was sitting there, stop doing that. Stop doing those contractions. Stop doing that. So he thought I was making this happen. And as he was poking that, he was pushing against my body going, stop doing that. And I realized that the doctor thought I was doing all of these contractions in my body. And it's like, so I would like a fair EMG. Also because my medications was not out of my system long enough by the Johns Hopkins protocol for stiff person syndrome. I would like a fair EMG with my medications out of my system long enough to get, because if they're not out of your system long enough, you get a false negative. And I told her this and she tried to argue it. And I said, nope, you get a false negative and I want it done by the Johns Hopkins protocol. She says, well, we'll send a message over and to the EMG specialist and we'll see what he says. Which was, and I was like, and after that EMG, while I'm stuck up in the air, he's like, okay, now get up and get in your chair. And it's like, I said, go get my mom. She'll explain. It's like these people have no idea what's sitting in front of them and what's happening. And it's like the same person sitting here pulling on me like this. Nope. Something's happening. So it's a movement disorder. Said, do not throw stigma at me if you don't know what it is. I said, don't put anything in there. She's like, well, it could be. I'm not sure. I'm like, those aren't answers. If you cannot give me a definitive answer, don't put it in the system. Don't muck up it in. Don't put in a scarlet letter. Don't put a maybe, an if, and then. Because those aren't scientific answers. Flat out. Why are you putting it in a chart? So she put in generalized stiffness. That is it. That's scientific. Close enough. I do have generalized stiffness. So she ran the thyroid, which is related to stiff person syndrome. She ran the GAD again, and I literally sit on the line of negative and positive. Sit directly on the line of negative and positive. Literally on the line. Look at my fingers. We're just curling out this way today. Literally on the line. On the line. If I was 1 point this way. So we're low on the line. But then on a Saturday, they messaged me and went, we're going to run another test. Can you go in and get another blood test for this? So I look into the test, obviously, because that's who I am. And it's for a neurotransmitter in your blood. It's for another SPS test. I argued a good case. And I obviously am making her either aggravated or she's like, I can't stop thinking about this person because that was my goal. It's like, I'm not going to make you stop thinking. And I said, well, I need a doctor who's going to stick around because I'm not here for a drive-through visit. She's like, I can't help you anymore. You don't have anything I can help. And I'm just like, I'm looking for a care doctor to stay on my care team. I'm not looking for a drive-through visit. I clearly have... And she's like, well, I've done all I can do. And I'm like, That's what I get every time I go into these, like, doctors and neurologists. And it's like, no, you haven't. I have other issues I haven't talked to you about. This is just the one thing I'm talking about right now because that's a big problem. I have this that we're dealing with that's just, like, hanging out. Hasn't been updated or checked. I have other things that are going on that we're just not talking about because we're talking about the primary issue. But there's other issues going on that we just don't get to that part. We talk about the big one and then it's like, but we have these other things going on too. It's like, I have other videos to show you, but we need to talk about this big issue first. But we're not gonna, okay. So you don't want to be my doctor? You don't want to be my friend? Oh, we're not friends? Okay, bye. Okay, no, we had an argument, but you don't want to hang out? Cool. See, I can have an argument with someone and still be like, we cool? Okay, cool. Clearly this doctor is not one of those people that can have a Facebook argument and still be friends with them. She definitely blocks people. Okay, Karen. Anyway, so the test that she's running also can identify other things as well. The other test she ran came back within a second. This test now, for some reason, came back and they decided to run it a second time. I'm very suspicious, and like, this test can open the door for a lot of things. Haven't talked about it on the TikTok, haven't talked about it on my Caring Bridge because I'm just sort of like, I need answers from this one, and I'm not jinxing myself on this one right now. I'm running out of people. We've run out of answers here in Minnesota. We've run out of answers here. If this one comes back negative. So from there, went home, had a good cry, you know. It was gut-wrenching to leave that doctor's office without any answers. I was hoping for something. Just tell me I'm an alien. Tell me I'm a lamp. Tell me something. But don't tell me I have a movement disorder because we know this. Tell me there's something wrong. Well, we know that. You know? So that's one update. Then the other update is that, okay, now the sun's coming in. Then after that, there's a bit of a lull. Then we talked to, then I had the echo. I think we talked about the echo. We talked to my heart doctor yesterday, the day before yesterday, because we didn't talk to him on Thanksgiving. Talked to him. Echo's fine, which we assumed. Still on the heart monitor, but he's like, are you just laying there? Because, you know, what we saw in the lab was like crazy. And now on your heart monitor, it's pretty quiet. I'm like, yeah, because you stood me up. He's like, so are you walking around? And I'm like, you dude, you don't get it. I don't walk around and then you put me up. He's like, so you don't move? I'm like, You doctors, you don't understand. When I say I'm disabled, I am disabled and I am bedbound, but it doesn't mean I don't move. It's not like I'm just like laying here all day like this, like, I'm disabled, I can't move. Like, people, I'm not an invalid just laying here in the bed going, I'm disabled, help me. I'm just laying here all day. No. People, you're a doctor. Come on. So he just assumed I've literally been laying flat. I said, no, I sit up, talk to my camera, sit on my commode, sit on my couch, sit on my wheelchair, roll around my room on my wheelchair, and then I come back to my bed. Those are my position options. I do not walk, I do not scoot, I do not crawl. I do not like it in a house. I do not like it in a box. I do not like green eggs and ham. Thank you. Cannot have green eggs and ham. My mast cell does not like it because of the food dye. Thank you. So, he had a hard time understanding that. He was like, well, I can't really, stumped him. Bada bing, bada boom. Then my mom was like, but what did you think of the attack? He's like, I really am not comfortable commenting on that. And mom was like, but I just want to pick your brain. He's like, I can't comment on that. I'm just not really comfortable commenting on that. Then I'm like, okay, fine. Here's what we didn't want to tell you this because we were trying to get you, movement doctor, to connect with you, heart doctor, but clearly those two aren't going to connect up. So here's what we're looking at. And then I guess I got the referral out of the cardiologist for Johns Hopkins, which will be great. I have to send in the information, but he was like, oh, I'm curious to see what they say. Yeah, I'm very interested. You know, they do IVIG for that and plasmapheresis, and yeah, I'd be very curious to see what they say about that. I'm really curious. I'm, you know, let me know what they say. I'm very curious. I'm very fascinated. I'm very curious. So, piqued his interest. He was very interested and got excited, and it's like, he's a very monotone guy, and all of a sudden I told him about this, and he was like, ooh, okay. It's like, okay, dude. I've stumped you, ridiculously stumped you, and now you're like, I've tickled your fancy, okay. I just don't understand. It was the silliest thing I've ever seen. Okay, so here's the other news. So I stumped the cardiologist, I stumped the movement, and then 2 days ago I got a text message from my occupational therapist, who I saw on Monday. She goes, I'm really sorry, I have to message you. And before I even opened the text message, I knew it was bad news because she shouldn't have been texting me. I was like, oh, this is too early. She goes, so I have COVID. And since I saw her, I've been having a headache. And I haven't been feeling myself. But I was thinking, oh, it must be mast cell. When you're chronically ill, trying to figure out if it's one of your chronic illnesses or... And when you have mast cell, it's also like, is it an allergy? Is it a mast cell? Is it, you know, you can have like low-grade fevers. You can have, it's just like, you don't know. You never know. It's like Russian roulette. Bah! So, then all of a sudden this random sore throat started rolling in. This was before the text messages. And I kept telling Mom, I just don't feel well. She's like, you're fine. It's all good. You're fine. It's like, nah, I don't think I'm fine. Then we got the text message. That morning before the text message, though, I woke up. I really didn't feel fine. Yesterday morning, I think, was the worst morning I woke up. My eyes felt like there's this tire pressure behind them. Ears feel sore. I haven't actually taken my temperature, so I'll take it later. I feel like there's tire pressure behind my eyes. My head feels like it's exploding. I feel like there's all this pressure, but there's no drainage. It's just all this like pressure. It's like this heavy pressure everywhere, which is scary. So, not yesterday because it was Thanksgiving, but the day before, tried to message my complex care doctor. She says because I'm out of the clinic systems, it would take longer to get results. You should just go to the state and go through there to get that. Went to the state, sent me right to the CDC, filled out the information. Because I clicked the immune compromised, they're like, call your doctor. So I called my primary care doctor, who I don't usually talk to because she does not understand zebras. And I said, left a nurse line, and they're like, you have to set up a televisit. And I was like, you telling me all these people with COVID do televisits? Okay. I'm just going to leave a message for the nurse and they can call me back. Then I got a call from the care coordinator who was like, you can either set up a televisit or you can go to this website and do urgent care, because I said I'd let them know the whole situation, like, hey, you should do this online thing. So I went to this online thing. They're like, yeah, they'll call you. I said, okay. I went through this whole clicky thing, which took 20 minutes. And literally nobody called me. It was like, yep, call this number. You need a test. And your insurance will pay for it. Okay, called the number. They're like, you can't get a test till Friday. Okay. So today I am going to go get a COVID test. Please be negative. I've had like direct contact. Then I had to tell my PCA because that same day my PCA was here. Same day my mom was here. Well, my mom's always here, but yeah. So that's the update, and yeah. Bit of a bumpy ride. But now we're looking at that and looking at Johns Hopkins. We are not doing that next neurologist visit. That would be this week. If I have COVID now, obviously I have to quarantine, but I hopefully don't, and hopefully the symptoms will go away, because if I do, I've been waiting 3 months to see this OBGYN that specializes in my stuff because of my low iron and ferritin and stuff. And I would miss this appointment for this OBGYN. And so yeah, I would have to reschedule, and it would probably be another 3 months. Which would mean I would probably have to get maybe another round of infusions. Possibly, depending on how my labs look. Yep. We don't know if it's coming from the OBGYN area, and that's why we need to see the OBGYN before we get these labs done to see if my labs have gone up since the infusions. Yeah. Yep. We don't need COVID. We really need this OBGYN appointment. We need whatever this is to go away. We need to keep moving on this health journey. I don't know how we would get to Johns Hopkins other than medical transport. And traveling by normal airport would be extremely risky because all these people. Also, that's a whole world of stiff attacks. Also, I just learned that airplane travel and potties, that's a whole thing. That's a whole confusing thing. Anyway, fun facts. I'm gonna call this good. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe. I'm gonna send you some spoons. Here you go, 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 here you go. I'm gonna send you some love. Thank you all for watching. I love you all for commenting. I see your comments. I thank you all for your support and love. Peace, love, and Cookie Monster. See you all on the flip side.